What's going on, YouTube people? Got a bit of a late start to the morning, but we have a lot to discuss. I'm not even sure where to begin at this point, actually. I guess we can talk about where the Mustang is currently. So I suppose currently it is sitting inside of the screen and porch, like it has been for the last 2 months or however long it's been. I actually have no idea how long it's been. We also pulled off the radiator hoses, things like that. And there are still a couple of connections to undo or make sure that are free before we yank this motor, hopefully today. It'd be amazing to get this thing out today. As you can see, because I didn't clean up my mess, I did quite a number on my concrete slab. Good thing I don't care. As far as other connections go, I think I still have the clutch line to disengage, I think, from underneath the car, as well as these vacuum lines, which is nice because it goes to this big junction. So I guess I'll just unbolt that, keep it all together as much as possible, and then maybe undo this one line going to the brake master cylinder. Then, I guess once I find the right place to lift from, we should be good to go. I don't know. Oh, there we go. There's one lift point, and then hopefully there'll be one on the other side somewhere. I didn't find the other lift point. I think with a quick internet search, I should be able to find out where it is. We also need to talk about the elephant in the room. Depending on the title of this video, you already know something big has happened. So let's go take a look at the elephant. That's right, you guessed it. I bought another Mustang. Surprise! So you guessed it, the 3000 GT is gone. I traded it for this 1995 Mustang GT, 5-speed, 5-liter. It is in fact the exact same setup as the one torn apart in the back porch. Now I'm sure some of you are wondering, why would I trade my very nice 3000 GT for this kind of beat looking Mustang GT? Well, the reality is quite simple. The 3000 GT had transmission issues and I honestly did not want to deal with them. So I traded it for a Mustang that has no transmission or engine issues. Let me prove that by starting it up. Now I haven't cleaned it yet or really gone through it, but as you can see, the interior is quite nice. The previous owner replaced it all with this kind of orangey brown interior. Leather. Pretty nice actually, for my standards. It's kind of weird seeing it all together again. I mean, at least I'll have a good roadmap for when I need to put this in the next vehicle. So, why did I do it? Other than the whole, oh look. So that's what that piece goes to. Oh. Man, I had no idea where this thing went, but now I do. So yeah, the idea is that if I have an entire spare everything, that's really beneficial to me. I was told a new AC compressor was installed, but the system has not been re-evacuated yet, and new refrigerant has not yet been put in, so the AC currently doesn't work. Also, there's something going on with the vacuum switch inside the car. It's not switching from defrost vents over to normal blower vents. That's funny. Otherwise, it's all completely stock, kind of unmessed with, which is how I would prefer to buy things. And now we have a duplicate everything if we need so. Time for a bit of a rant. If you can see it, well, what's left of it, this paint happens to be that kind of metallic green color that Ford's used. You see this giant dent in this front fender? So the fender that was on the Mustang inside the house, that one is the exact same color as this. Now, I sold that to somebody for either 25 or 40 bucks. And it's like, well, I could have easily used that on this one now, but I had no idea that I'd be getting another Mustang of the exact same year, same body style, everything. Actually, I think I still have a green door, so if I wanted to, I could swap it out with this one. I don't even know if I want to go through all that trouble though. The thing runs and drives. I just don't care about the looks of a vehicle as much anymore. I mean, it used to matter to me, but now it's like, as long as it works, I just don't care. I don't even like drawing attention, so why would I want to bring more of it to me with a nice looking car? I used to own a G35, And when I needed to go to Walmart to do my shopping, I would park it all the way out at the end of the parking lot. That way, nobody had a reason to park next to it or ding it or dent it. And one day, somebody must have just come up, I don't know why, but they smashed in the front fender with their foot. Like they just went up to it, bam, something like that. And although I was able to get the dent out with a suction cup, well, the plunger, technically a toilet plunger, it still made me realize people are always going to hate on something. So I'd rather just not draw attention to myself at all at this point. That's basically why I don't mind driving something that has no paint or whatever. And if I do choose to paint it, it's certainly not going to be very impressive. So looks like we got a little rust action going on. So to sum up the beginning of this video, 3000 GT is gone. New Mustang has replaced it. At least it's another 5.0 stick. Let's take it for a quick drive, shall we? It's all pretty standard stuff inside. It has the Mach 460 sound system, which I wouldn't know what it sounds like because the head unit doesn't work currently. Maybe I should try a different way to test that. Hey look, a clock! I don't think that's right. It says that it has low coolant. It doesn't. The airbag light is on, which probably means they won't deploy in the event of an accident. What is it about me owning vehicles and problems with airbags? Anyway, it's not perfect inside. Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah, so let's take it for a quick drive around the block. One thing I'll have to fix sooner than later is my seat's kind of broken and I'm stuck in the whole ghetto lean back position. So, yes, sooner than later. I'm definitely going to have to set up some kind of camera rig so we can film things. I think we'll stop in and see what my dad is up to, or if he's even home at the moment. Well, that was very nice of him. My dad said he would give me a hand, so let's run back to the car, well, back to the shell of a Mustang, and try and get apart everything else that needs to be undone before the motor can come out. As a final thought on this thing, we need to consider what I have into it so far. So I bought a $500 Toyota Echo. I sold that $500 Toyota Echo for $900. Then, with the addition of $100, I bought the 3000 GT, which I traded for this Mustang. So in essence, I only have $600 in this 1995 Mustang GT 5-speed 5.0. I keep stressing the 5.0 and 5-speed because that is a golden combination for me. Now that I've changed into my work shorts, basically it's every last little item that I need to get undone. So we are just going to rip into it. First I'm going to take off that trim bezel and then see what else is required to get that transmission to drop down before we hit underneath. I'm probably just going to remove this extension arm. That way, well, obviously it shouldn't be on there when we're dropping the transmission down. And like half of the bolts in this car, it's at 8mm. Looks like 4 of them. One piece, first of the day. Next up is going to be that shift handle extension. Hey, at this point it almost looks like the his and hers shifters. Up next, coming from this vacuum block essentially, this hose that you see right here, that's the one that was going to my vacuum operated cruise control. So we're going to mark that, tape it off, and probably get rid of it once it goes into its next home. So I marked it as such, vacuum cruise control. I don't think I spelled cruise right. Next is the vacuum hose going to the brake booster, so let's take that off and mark it. Simple enough. Next up, because I find it so convenient, this distribution block for the vacuum hoses. 2 8mm bolts hold that on. Let's take them off. Now with it removed, I'm also taping up the screws, that way they stay with it. I think that's going to be a nice little hack the next time I go to try and find the screws that fit to this thing. They're already attached. Good, now we can set that off to the side. Also, I just found out that there's this tiny little hose. I have no idea what that goes to. Next up, I've got some power steering lines. I don't think there's any fluid in the power steering pump, so it's probably not doing me any good anyway. And I don't think there's going to be power steering on the next vehicle. So, there's this one with a nut on it right there, so I should just be able to loosen that, and then that'll come off. That way, this line that runs down underneath isn't going to be in my way. I'm probably also going to take out the bolt that's right here. That way the bracket can be pulled with it, and just out of my way. The next line runs from the back of the power steering pump, behind that one engine hook. So it's back there. I don't know how it attaches yet, but that cable runs down here and goes right here. So we're gonna need to remove it there as well. Probably gonna position my catch bucket underneath, that way it catches all that power steering fluid. Got the clamp off and out of the way. Now it's time to see if there's any fluid inside that hose. Yep, got a little in there. Let's let that drain out. Back top side, we've got another 10mm bolt holding on that bracket. We'll take that off, and then we'll find a wrench that fits that nut size. Yes, that one with the zoom! So after you use your 18mm wrench and give it exactly 967 turns anti-clockwise, it comes right out. Next up, I've got this one vacuum hose. This one that runs down, blah blah blah, and then comes out. It is so brittle and destroyed. If the camera would focus, it's not going to focus. It's so brittle and destroyed, I'm surprised it's doing anything at this point. Yeah, nice. So I'm going to mark it off there and say going to, I don't know, emissions canister. I think this is for excess fuel, maybe? Perhaps? I don't know. 2 seconds later, I realized that it went into this sensor, which goes off into the harness. I don't know exactly all what it does, so I can't terminate it there. I'll forget where it goes. So instead, I'm going to take off the hose that goes over here. And that was easy. Just pass that right back through the system, I guess, and lay it on top with everything else. So I marked it to emissions pump. Anyway, I can't use that hose I took off anyways, too destroyed, so we'll probably get a whole bunch of new hoses for the entire engine while we're at it. Next task, I believe, is the 2 fuel lines. I don't know which one is the return and which one is the from tank. So, yeah, I'm going to keep them together, I guess. I don't know. So I pried loose the little holder clip that's on here, so we will make sure we don't lose that one. And these, I don't think that there's anything holding these lines on here. I would have thought that they were like pressurized fittings or some kind of clamp, but I think if I pull... Oh, maybe they are special. So the fuel line clips work a lot like any kind of other clip. I think you can buy a special tool from the store that helps you take them off. But if you have a set of needle nose pliers or other device, you will be able to remove them. So now I got both of my fuel lines off. So they are only attached at the motor now, so I don't have to worry about them. Now, I think I don't have enough space to use the engine hoist. What I mean is, when I do get the engine out with the transmission, I need to be able to back up far enough or get around something so I can put the engine in its resting place for the time being until I get the other car in here. But with how close everything already is to the screened-in door and wall, I think I have to take the wall down again just to be able to move around in here. So I think it's cleaning time. I gotta move all this crap and then take the wall down and the door out so that this can actually happen today. Now that we've got this mess mostly taken care of, other than removing the wall itself, see, next thing holding me up is going to be that throttle cable. You can see the 2 bolts coming off of it, and then that one should be the clutch cable. So that looks like it has 1 bolt holding it in. The throttle cable, if we look inside, as you can see, when I press it down, it pulls that actual cable itself. But if I push it in, it looks like I could just slip this piece over top. Well, something like that anyway. So if you use a pair of needle nose and then squeeze the black plastic piece that retains that cable, well, you'll know the one I'm talking about once you're in there. You squeeze it, it'll just pop right out. And then we should be able to remove it from the outside in the engine bay. On the throttle cable, the one marked with the blue tape, those are 2 bolts, both 8mm. Go ahead and remove them. Throttle cable. Then right next to it is the clutch cable, with 1 8mm bolt holding that in. So inside, see that little metal piece hanging at the top of that off yellow bracket? That is the throttle cable, so we're going to need to pull that out of its retainer clip, and then it should just slide over top of everything else. Sorry about the low light. So instead of doing what I just told you, there's a cotter pin that holds on this whole plastic assembly from this side. It's that piece right there. Once you get that out, you should be able to pry that plastic piece off, thus making it really easy to put that throttle cable on or off. You know what I mean. And do be careful when taking that off. When the spring lets loose, it is quite fast and sharp. Sorry. That bolt, the one that holds the clutch cable in, is actually a 7mm, not an 8. Sorry about that. I am surrounded by lizards. Come here. Another one bites the dust. Clutch. Simple enough, right? Turns out it's actually held on by another bracket down there, so we got to take that bracket off. I'm guessing 8, 10, or 7mm, one of those. So while looking over the engine to see if there was anything else attached, which I'm sure there are a few things, and I'm sure once we start to yank on this thing, we will notice right away what's still attached. This one in particular. Underneath here, where'd it go? Ah, there it is. Over on this far side, right next to that brake line, you can sort of see it. Kind of tough. So you see that, well, they're all black, but the shiny black line, that's actually a ground cable. So there's another chassis ground all the way underneath here. So that is a 10mm bolt. You have to remove that, otherwise you're going to get snagged hard when trying to pull out this motor. Here's a shot of that cable from above. So you see the oil filter right there with the black cap end on it? That black kind of twisty line, the smallest one right in the center of the camera, that's the ground wire. You gotta get that out. There we go, on record, chassis ground. Future Andrew, don't forget about this one. Underneath the car, you have the cross member that holds up the transmission. There's 2 long bolts on either side, one on the left, one on the passenger side, and then 2 that hold it in the center. Remove them while supporting the tail shaft of the transmission with a jack. So after you get the trans cross member out, which comes out pretty easily as long as your car hasn't been wrecked, next you're going to want to loosen up the motor mounts. There's 1 nut on each side of the car holding it in. It is in fact a 7/8 socket. I suggest using a long 1/2" extension and 1/2" drive. Next thing you have to do is rig it up so that you can find the locations to pull the motor from. There's one in the front, and we had to make our own in the rear off of the exhaust manifold stud. So hopefully you have a spreader bar and a very decent sized hoist. It should be known that this was kind of expected to happen. I just had no preparations for it. So I've reached the point now where I have to take this wall down, and that's what has to happen next, so stay tuned. So as you just saw, we got the motor out into the driveway, at least out of the way, so now it is time to throw the wheels back on the car, get the jack out, remove the jack stands, and then try pushing the car out the garage. You hear that thunder? I'm glad we're done. Today was a long day, but check out that progress. Yeah! Finally something, right? So obviously we got the engine out. and took a lot more work to get the Mustang out of its hole than assumed. There's no sense in closing it up because the new car should be coming in here tomorrow. We won't spoil that surprise. Let's go take a look at the engine. Just a normal 5.0 T5. Right now we're sitting on some carpet rolls just so the oil pan isn't crushing against the concrete. Thanks to my parents who had that sawdust, so we were able to clean out the majority of that trans fluid that dumped everywhere. You know, it is what it is. I'm not really too concerned about it. If anything, I would just repaint all of this concrete at some point. It used to be a green color just like the house is. There's really only one more thing I wanted to say about today's episode. Now, for those of you who have never pulled a motor, this may not, sink home as much as somebody else who has pulled a motor before. And I've never pulled anything this big. I've done small stuff, MG motors and Triumph motors with my dad, but nothing really, that massive. The other stuff came out pretty easily compared to it. So I just wanted to say that before my dad showed up, I had every single thing unclipped and unbolted except for the engine mounts, which were 2 nuts holding that on, and then the trans support bracket, which in all is 4 bolts. So I did pretty good. I'm really proud of myself, actually. The fact that we didn't get snagged on anything was great. All the lines were undone, all the electrical was undone. It went basically as well as it could have. I did notice that the engine had to be so high that it actually scraped the roof. See those shiny spots? Almost looks like a holographic Pokemon card. That's where we were rubbing as we were pulling the hoist out with the engine and transmission. But it's okay. No damage. Just a little scrapey scrape. Fine. No worries. But I think that's where we're going to end this episode. Thank you so much for watching $1,000 Car Guy. I can't wait to show you what's next. It's huge. Okay, stay tuned. I'll see you on the next episode.